Once again, good evening, everyone. My name is Eddie Ramirez, and I'm one of the top advisors here at UC Davis. I mostly work with students from the North State region and Redwood Coast, but some of you may have I've already worked with before, possibly. Tonight, I am joined by two of our student ambassadors, Lydia and Carolina, who will be on the chat, making sure they answer all the questions that you all have. So please make sure that as you have questions, go ahead and add them on. And I'll try to have at least some time at the end to go over some questions. Obviously, I know that at this time of year, it's already coming towards the end of the fall semester. You've all already submitted the application, and many of you are wondering, well, what's next? What am I going to do? So hopefully by the end of this presentation, you have a better idea of what's to come as you're going along this transfer journey and really coming towards the end of the process of, getting ready to hear back and kind of just finishing up these last few details of the application. As I mentioned, this is my name. I'm one of the assistant directors for the Transfer Opportunity Program. Just a quick overview of what the presentation will look like this evening. We will go over the Transfer Academic Update, or the TAU. I might say those interchangeably. I'm going to talk a little bit about the My Admissions portal, and then we'll go into some financial aid and scholarship next steps. And then finally, at the end, some important dates and deadlines. All right. So the first step is, what is a transfer academic update? And the transfer academic update is a chance for you all to pretty much let us know what the grades you receive for fall, and obviously any changes to your schedule for spring. So the transfer academic update, it does open up pretty soon. So it's something to keep an eye out for. The priority deadline for the transfer admission guarantee is at January 31st, 2026. So you will have a little bit of time to get to that point. And keep in mind, the transfer academic update is required for both tag and non-tag applicants, right? So, similar to the general application, which is needed for both tag and non-tag applicants, this is something that continues down on that path. There are only a few changes you're actually able to make on the transfer academic update, so I'll be able to talk about that a little bit more moving forward. And one thing to note is that it's always good to keep an eye out for these communications from all of the schools that you've applied to, right? Because at this time, you probably start getting a lot of emails, maybe requesting more information. You might get emails either from the UC system or specifically from the campuses. So it's always good to keep checking those emails. And one thing that we always want to know is that for those emails, it may be that they go into like your spam folders or something like that. So it's always good to check that beforehand as well and then kind of do the process just to make sure that you're receiving everything. Okay. So moving on to the again transfer academic update. Once you are able to log back into your application, this is what you'll see here. It kind of gives a small explanation on what the transfer academic update looks like. Over the next few slides, I'll be able to show you a few screenshots of some of those pages that you'll be able to go through. And as you can see here at the top bar, it kind of goes the specific order to reviewing your details before you submit. So here are a couple of screenshots, again, from when you first open up your transfer academic update. The first page you will see, other than that introduction, is the colleges that you've listed, right? Obviously, this is something you just recently did when you submitted the application. So as you could see on the left-hand screenshot, you'll see a lot of that information you probably already, submitted. So the college you've attended, the code for it, the terms you've attended, and then obviously some of that same information. It's always good to review it in case you need to make any changes for this. And as you can see on the right-hand side, sometimes you may actually end up signing up for classes that originally you weren't going to. So then you want to update the terms on that end so you're able to add those classes. So it's always good to kind of go through it and just making sure it's accurate to what your unofficial transcripts would show as well. Continuing on with that, obviously, once you've completed adding all the colleges you're attended and just making sure that all the colleges are true to what's on your unofficial transcript, the next step is adding the courses and, of course, the grades. As I mentioned, this is where you'll add those fall grades and then make updates to your spring schedule if necessary. With those grades and updates, you can only do the updates for this specific time period. So just for fall 25 and spring of 2026. And again, this is required for you to complete. So I know sometimes students will kind of go through and say, well, nothing has really changed on my schedule. Do I really have to do anything on the academic update? But yes, it's actually very important. Another thing is that this is the last update that all campuses that you have applied to will receive. Once you have completed the transfer academic update, if there are further changes to your application, let's say, uh, you end up having to withdraw from a spring class, or let's say you forgot an item or whatever that may be, then you'll have to reach out to every individual campus. So again, it's important for you to complete this to making sure you're adding all those classes for these final terms. And then again, making sure it's accurate to your unofficial transcripts, right? I know that sometimes grades can be a little delayed on reporting. So I know I've had a few students say, well, I'm pretty sure I'm going to get an A in this class, so I'm just going to put that as my final fall grade, right? But please make sure that you are able to add these grades once they have been officially posted. That way, it's all accurate all the way through. The next page you'll see after you're done adding your colleges, your courses, and grades, then you'll see this where it's kind of just to check in again if you're still meeting the necessary minimum requirements for transfer, right? So it is going to ask you the questions on will you satisfy the entry level writing requirement, right? So you could put yes or no at that time. It's also going to ask you more about, in this case, is a slightly older screenshot where it's going to ask you about the completion of your CalGETC, iGETC, basically your general education certification, right? So you can go ahead and list that on there. And then it's going to go in to show you those classes that are meeting the seven course pattern, right? So the English composition, the mathematics, and the other areas listed as well. Keep in mind that the iGETC and CalGETC are not required for admission. These are just items that you can go ahead and report them here on the application. So in this case where you are able to say, yes, I will complete the certification for CalGETC, and then you end up not doing so, that's perfectly fine. It's not going to harm you for the admissions process. Continuing on, as I mentioned before, a lot of this will probably look very similar to what you already saw when you were working through the application originally. So it is going to ask you a little more additional information, such as have you been on academic probation, yes or no, if you're part of any of the transfer pathways, and then kind of going into the additional comments as well. So that way you can kind of fill in that information if you didn't get a chance to do so before. And then also the additional comments. If there's any big changes that you would like for us to know, that would be a great spot for you to go ahead and list it on there. I know sometimes students, again, may have had an issue registering for a specific course that they had originally listed. Or in some cases, I've heard of students who have had changes from their tag application that are occurring now. So it's always good to mention that in the additional comments so that the evaluation teams are aware that there are changes between your tag to now, or from when you submitted your general application to now. On the right hand side, as you can see there, once you have added all the necessary information for your transfer academic update, you'll just need to certify the accuracy of it. So you could read those statements right there and then check the checkbox and then go ahead and add your initials. Once you have submitted your transfer academic update, you will get a confirmation page at the end letting you know that you've successfully submitted the transfer academic update. You could always print these pages for your records. In some cases, it may be important for you to pull up, as you never know when issues occur, and you're able to then show these to say like, I actually did submit my transfer academic update way back in January 3rd or whatever that may be, right? So you could always go ahead and print that out. And again, it will show you that confirmation and the details that you listed in your transfer academic update, like the colleges that you listed, the terms, all that good stuff. On the right-hand side, you will also see what your application status will look like, right? So as you can see here, the campuses that were applied to will be right there. And then you'll see there in the red box where it will let you know when the academic update was submitted, right? This is a screenshot from the previous year, so it would just be on the 2025, of course, time, or if you submitted in January, it would say submitted in 2026. But as you can see here, one thing I do want to point out is there aren't many changes available to your application right at this time, as I mentioned earlier. You could add more campuses if you would like to apply to other campuses, right? So in this case, the student chose Merced, Riverside, and Santa Cruz. If they decided to maybe add on Davis or kind of just add on in one of the other UCs, you could do that at that time. This is a good time to also update your personal information. I know sometimes students may uh, mess up when they were adding their names. Maybe they just misspelled it a little bit, or just they want to update some of those items as well. You could also update the exams, so like your English language proficiency test, IB, AP, international exams, and you could also update the release authorizations. So, as I mentioned before, there aren't too many other changes that are possible, especially when it comes to students who want to make changes, again, to like their extracurricular activities or to their personal insight questions. That's something that once it's submitted, that's locked in at that time. So here, as you see, once you've submitted the application, or excuse me, the transfer academic update, hopefully it goes smoothly, right? And the next steps we'll cover it in a second. But in the case that you have any issues with the transfer academic update, um, please feel free to reach out to the UC Application Center. You could see there their email for the help desk and then also their phone numbers if you're calling within the US or outside of the US, and you can see their hours posted there as well. I know sometimes students have issues with the system itself, which is something that the campuses can't necessarily help with, right? Because that's more of a technical issue. So, for example, if you're having issues, the TAU going through, or you keep getting errors, it might be a good idea to go ahead and reach out to them as well. If you have something that questions about like content, right? So let's say you again, as I mentioned, turns out you need to change your application materials later on, such as you weren't able to actually register for a course, then that would be a specific update to each campus. All right, so one thing I quickly want to go over are your portals, right? So every campus that you've applied to, whether it's in the UC system or even outside of the UC system, they should be sending you now some emails giving you access to their applicant portals, right? So for UC Davis, ours is called My Admissions, right? With that portal, that is how we're able to communicate with students. That's where you'll be able to find out about your admission status, and then, of course, send us information as well through this portal. All right, so you should be getting this information pretty soon. The way it happens is that you will be emailed a UC Davis student ID, right? So once you are able to access that email and you see that student ID, you'll be able to go to this page right here and start setting up your account. Again, it's very important you do this because there are students who go through the entire process never setting up their student account, so then they never know what their admission status is. So as you're able to start setting up your My Admissions account, this is kind of where the pages that you'll see where you'll add your first name, middle name, last name, and then that student ID which you have received through email, and then your date of birth. And then as you're going through the process, you'll eventually end up to this. Of course, this is just a sample page from the previous application cycle. You'll see here that this student, Abe Tutor, had submitted their application. So it says, thank you for your application to UC Davis. On the right-hand side, you will see some of that information related to your applicant profile, right? So your student ID, the name you listed on your application, the term that you are applying for, your email, and your mailing address. As you can see here on this main page, there are going to be a few more links, including a connection to the place where you could update us on your application, where are able to review some important dates and deadlines, and then you're also able to check us out on social media through this page. I do want to point out that on the right-hand side where it says find it fast, report coursework and application changes. Again, this is where you'll be able to let us know of any changes to your application. And you see that link same in the other description as well. Because as I mentioned before, once you have submitted your transfer academic update, right, and your application then is sent out to all the UC campuses. After that, you're going to have to individually report any changes to every campus, right? So if you need to report that change, go ahead and go through here. The one thing I will advise for you all to do is not necessarily to use this as a tool, like an advising tool, right? I know sometimes students in the past I've seen say, well, if I get an F grade on this or if I get a D grade on this, what's going to happen, right? It's not an advising tool. It's just saying like, hey, this happened to me. I just want to get it reported and I want to get it done now instead of waiting until, the end of the admissions process when you receive my transcripts, and then we have to worry about that then, right? So this is just a way to get ahead of it by submitting these changes to coursework and applications. So another thing to keep in mind is, of course, our the financial aid, which is an important next step as well. So financial aid applications should already be open. So hopefully you're all able to start submitting those. And keep in mind that priority deadlines are typically in March. Um, for UC Davis, you might have to add a code on the application. So the UC Davis code is 001313. So keep in mind of that code if you need it. I would also suggest keep copies of your tax returns and other necessary documents in case they're needed, right? And the reason for that is because as the admissions office is reviewing your application, the financial aid office is also reviewing your financial aid applications, right? So it may be that they request further information, such as these tax returns or some other documents necessary to provide you with your financial aid package. So just go ahead and keep them handy. That way, you're easily able to just send that over to them if requested, and then the whole process just continues moving smoothly. And then, as you can see there at the bottom point, if you need any help filing your FAFSA, you can contact FAFSA at 1-800-433-3243. Now, as you were going through the application, you probably were able to see that there were scholarships that you could apply to on the application, right? Those were scholarships that were available to students depending on the campuses that they had selected, right? But of course, there's a lot of scholarships available, not just for students, within UC, but there's also a lot of outside scholarships available. Now, if you go to our UC Davis Financial Aid and Scholarship website, you will be able to see some of those outside scholarships that you could start applying to and see some of the requirements necessary for those as well. A few other helpful links would be diversityjobs.com, fastweb.com, financialaid.org, and a few others there. You could go ahead and start looking. And I would highly encourage you to kind of look around to see what's available. It could be that sometimes your community is able to offer you scholarships, depending on like the high school you attended, or sometimes small organizations in your community are able to raise money for some of these students. So it's always good to look around to see what you can apply to. And just keep in mind that if you are awarded any scholarships, you always have to let the financial aid office know once you start receiving this and you are aware of your financial aid package, right? That way they're able to adjust your financial aid package depending on how much money you have received, even from these outside scholarships. So here are some upcoming dates and deadlines. As I mentioned before, the TAU it should be opening up pretty soon. The FAFSA and the DREAM Act application should also be available for you to start applying. Um, we hopefully will be able to notify students of their transfer admission sometime in March and kind of rolling into April. It's something where it's on a rolling basis, right? So if you don't receive your notification, when we first start releasing them, that's perfectly fine. They release in batches, so it could be that it's coming later on. And that's why, again, it's important for you to keep checking your My Admissions website, because once we release it, that's where it's going to be released. So keep an eye out for that. And then we will have our transfer SIR deadline, which is your statement of intent to register on June 1st, right? So it's going to give you a bit of time to, ask questions, and we will be hosting webinars throughout the spring so that you're able to get more information about UC Davis to make sure that once you are ready to submit the transfer SIR, then you're making the right decision. And we'll also be hosting other events throughout that spring as well. So you can kind of keep in a loop and be able to ask any questions you may have before you start at UC Davis. So again, these are a few more end of fall next steps. Again, make sure to print a copy of your UC application just to make sure you have that for your records. Uh, Obviously, if you haven't registered already for your spring 2026 coursework, please make sure to do so as soon as you can. This is especially critical for those students who have courses that are required for their major. It's best to get that done and out of the way so that you make sure you are able to get those classes on your course plan, or in the case you're not able to get those classes on your course plan, now you're able to start looking around and see if it's available somewhere else, or find out the next steps after that. Obviously, study, do your best to earn the highest possible grades for fall of 2025. For those of you who are not aware, fall 2025, this is your last chance to get your GPA up as high as you can, right? Because once we see that transfer academic update with your fall 2025 grades, that's the GPA that we're going to be using for your evaluation, right? So this is the last chance, so to speak, to get that GPA up. So if you're already in finals, perfect. If you've already done it, then hopefully you'll be getting your grades back pretty soon, and then be able to report it on the update. Again, work on your financial aid applications, apply for scholarships, take advantage of this time during winter break to just make that push of submitting some of those applications over it, and hopefully you'll be able to find out more about those scholarships pretty soon. Prepare your records, including your high school transcripts, previous colleges and universities, and your AP scores as well, APIB. This is more important later on if you are admitted to whatever campus you are admitted to. It will be great for you to have that available so you're able to start submitting those if necessary. Also, in some cases, we do request unofficial transcripts from students because there might be an issue in your application and we just want some clarification on grades or reported coursework. So it's always good to have unofficial transcripts handy, whether it's just like a PDF copy, that's typically okay for you to be able to submit. If you are um, an international student and you have international transcripts, sometimes there might be a bit of a delay between, when you request those transcripts and when you actually receive them. So it might be good to get started on that pretty early as well. And the same for AP IB scores, right? If it's been a few years since you've taken your AP exams, for example, sometimes they are cataloged, right? And it could take a few months before you're able to pull those AP scores to submit over to universities. So it might be that as soon as you find out that you are admitted to a university, start getting those AP scores so you're able to start submitting them as soon as you can. And then for some of you who may have a very busy spring semester or quarters, it's always good to take advantage of winter session if available, right? Start taking some of those classes during winter session. That way you're able to kind of ease up the workload for the rest of your time at community college. Just want to say thank you all for coming to this presentation, and hopefully you're able to learn a little bit more about what some of those immediate next steps are, and now with the transfer academic update. And yes, good luck with the application moving forward. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us. Thank you.